Hey guys, welcome back to another Freaky Friday video on my channel. Today we are going to be talking about none other than the Black-Eyed Children. Now for those of you who may be coming to this topic for the completely first time, then you might be wondering what exactly the Black-Eyed Children are. And to be completely honest with you, nobody really knows, but they are creatures that appear to be children between the ages of about 5 to 16, and they have completely black eyes, and nobody who encounters them is really sure exactly, again, what they are. Nobody knows what creature they are. It is speculated that they could be demons. Some people claim they could be vampires. Some think they could be extraterrestrials. Nobody is quite sure. The topic of the Black-Eyed Children also appears to be a little controversial, and by that I mean people either really strongly believe that these Black-Eyed Children do exist, where other people strongly believe that this was just some story fabricated by a man by the name of Brian Bethel, and it just went too far and now he's claiming his story is true. So typically the encounter with these children are always pretty similar. They come up to you while you are in a secluded area, possibly in your car, or maybe in the late hours of the evening when there is absolutely nobody around. They will show up and knock on your doors or window. The children typically come in groups of twos, but sometimes come in a larger group as well as just one singular child. They also almost always come in the very late hours of the evening when it is very dark out, which makes it quite difficult for people to notice that they have completely blackout eyes. And typically these children look very normal. Some people state that they look like they are really backdated, wearing creepy old nightgowns, but from most encounters that I've read online, they just appear to be your average kid, besides the fact that they have black eyes. So once these children arrive at your house or in your car while you're by yourself out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, wherever they show up, they tend to knock very slowly on your door or your car window. And when they do arrive at your house, it is said that they almost never ring the doorbell. Now, once you open the door for these children, despite whatever kind of conversation you're having with them, they almost always try and get you to invite them into the house. They also always say that they cannot come into your car or your home unless you tell them that it is okay or you physically say you can come in. These children are also really known to guilt trip the person who they are trying to convince to invite them into their home by saying things like they have nowhere else to go, they're lost, they're cold, they're hungry, they're thirsty, any kind of thing that you can imagine a small child saying to you and you feeling guilty and wanting to bring them into your home. These children use to their advantage. People who have encountered these children say that when they first arrive, they feel overly compelled to let these children into their home. But after noticing that these children have black eyes, their instincts kicked in and they are obviously really concerned and almost fearful and want to just tell the kids to go away. Legend states that if these children ever arrive near you, to your house or your car or to wherever they may show up, it is strongly advised for you to slam the door and tell these children that they are not welcome here. Make it really obvious that you do not want to allow these children into your home or your vehicle. Because when people let these children into their home, that is when things start to become very bad. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Now, it was pretty hard for me to tell if the Black-Eyed Children stories started in the 90s, and that is when people started to kind of talk about them because of Brian Bethel's claimed encounter, or if they had appeared before that and they then stopped and came back and started to have more of a widespread appearance in the 90s. I really couldn't tell because, of course, you can date anything with whatever on the internet, so some of the stories date back to before the 90s, but I'm really not sure if that's just people messing around on the internet or what. But anyways, I'm going to start with the story of Brian Bethel because he is the person who really brought these children to light. So again, a man by the name of Brian Bethel had an encounter with these Black-Eyed Children in Abilene, Texas in the late 90s. So this again was in the 90s. This was before everything was really digital, and Brian's internet service provider had an office in a shopping center in downtown Abilene, Texas. So he would go to that plaza and drop off his monthly bill payments in a drop box that was outside of this office. So on that night, he had left his apartment around 9:30 to go and drop off his monthly bill payment. So the place that he was going to drop off this check was located right beside a movie theater that offered $1.50 movies every single night. It was like $1.50 movie theater, which is awesome because I don't think we have those anymore. But anyways, Brian pulled up close to this movie theater so that he could use the light that was coming from the movie theater to write his check. That's when he heard a light tapping on his car window, and he looked up to see two young boys standing outside of his vehicle. Both boys appeared to be between the ages of 10 and 14. The first boy was a bit taller, he had olive-colored skin and brown curly hair, whereas the other boy was a bit shorter, he had very pale skin, and Brian assumed that he had freckles just because his skin was so pale and he had like a dusty orange-colored hair. Now, the boys to Brian didn't appear like they were related, but he thought that they were going to ask him for some kind of money. Once he rolled down the window, the taller boy did absolutely all of the talking, where the shorter boy just kind of stood there and looked around, and Brian described his looking around as seemingly quite nervous. Upon first noticing the boys knocking on the window, Brian said that he was overcome with a sense of fear for absolutely no reason. But even though he was feeling quite scared at this point, he thought that this was just, I don't know, nothing, because there was no reason for him to be afraid of these two young boys. So he rolled down his window anyways. The taller boy then explained to Brian that they wanted to go and see a movie, but they had forgotten their money at home. At this point, the younger boy was just kind of looking around again nervously, and Brian said that he almost had a guilty look on his face. Brian also said that the older boy, or the taller boy, who was asking him to drive them to wherever they were needing to go, didn't really seem like he was asking. He seemed more or less like he was telling Brian that he was going to be driving them to their house or to wherever they needed to go to get their money, and that he didn't really have a choice, but them asking was just a formality. He looked away from the boys for a brief moment and looked at the theater and saw the theater's showing times. And that's when he noticed that the last showing for that evening had started over an hour ago, so there was not really a possibility that these boys were going to the movies at all. And upon looking back at these boys, that is when Brian Bethel noticed that both of these boys had solid black eyes. Now, Brian was completely freaked out, and he hadn't actually turned his car off yet while he was writing the check. It wasn't in park, it was just kind of sitting in the parking spot, which I'm sure we all do time to time. So after noticing that the boys had completely black eyes, he threw his car into drive and began to drive away. And that is when he said that the taller boy started freaking out and yelling in what sounded like anger as well as panic that they can't enter his car unless they are invited in. Now, Brian was so freaked out, and obviously he wasn't going to invite these guys into his car. They had solid black eyes, he was scared, he thought that they were something paranormal, so he just kind of drove away from them. But when he looked back into his rearview mirrors, that is when he noticed that these two boys just seemingly vanished. Now, that was just a really short version of that story, because it is quite long, and you can find the longer version on the internet, or if you type in black-eyed children, there are tons of people who narrate the story on YouTube, because it is a little bit longer, because Brian Bethel actually claimed that he had a second encounter with the black-eyed children, which doesn't really happen very often. But that story is believed to be where the black-eyed children originated from, and if they had originated before that, then that is the time when they really started to make themselves known. This is when they started to appear more frequently, more often, and that is when thousands of people started to have claimed sightings of these children. I should mention that Brian Bethel actually is a writer, so for him to fabricate a story like this isn't something that would be unheard of, but the fact that thousands of people today claim to have had encounters with the black-eyed children is something that makes people think that they are in fact real, and this was not a fabricated story. Now, I'm sure many of you, like myself, when I first started researching the black-eyed children, I was really wondering what would happen if you let these children into your home, and I was almost positive, like, somebody had to have let these kids in. I think that even though people are overtaken by fear when they notice that these kids have black eyes, some people just have such a big heart that they would set that aside and just think it was a birth defect. And they would let these kids into their homes anyways. I'm almost positive of that. So I looked it up on the internet, and I did come across a story where a woman did claim to have let two black-eyed children into her home. And I'm not going to read the whole story because it is quite long, but I will just give you a quick summary of it like I did with the last story. So basically, this story takes place sometime in 2015, and the couple that I'm going to talk about lived in a small community where everybody really knew each other. There was not really many people who came through the community that they didn't know, and this couple, even though they did live in a community, they lived quite a ways from anybody else, and their home was in quite a secluded area, and it was located just outside of Vermont, which I should have mentioned before, but I didn't. Now, it was the middle of the night, and this husband and wife were in bed when they heard somebody knocking on their front door. And because of where they lived, it was quite hilly, and that particular night there was a very bad snowstorm, so the couple assumed that somebody had crashed nearby due to a hill being slippery or something like that, and they thought that this person could have possibly needed help. So they went downstairs to open the door. When they opened the door, there was 2 children standing there. One was a boy and one was a girl. They claimed that these children couldn't have been any older than 8 years old, with I think the girl looking like she may have been a little bit older than the boy. And they also claimed that these children were dressed very oddly and that they had odd haircuts. The woman who recapped the story, the wife I guess in this situation, said that after seeing these children, she was overcome with an uneasy feeling. She felt really nervous and just unsettled by the presence of these kids. And she said that her normal reaction would have been to bring these children inside right away, especially due to the fact that they were not dressed for winter. But she said she just felt really uneasy. The children wouldn't make eye contact with either this woman or her husband, and they kind of kept looking at the ground, but they did ask if they could come in. And this couple felt really uneasy again, like I said before, but they didn't know what to do. This was 2 young children at their front door, not dressed for winter in the middle of the snowstorm. So they asked the kids where their parents were, and the kids said, oh, they'll be here soon. So the couple just assumed that there was some kind of accident. With it being about 2 o'clock in the morning, the couple really didn't know what to do. And what would you do if 2 young children showed up on your front doorstep in the middle of the snowstorm very late at night? So they brought the kids in and they got them ready for hot cocoa. So the woman left the room and went into the kitchen to make hot chocolate. They also said that when the kids entered the home, their cats began to act very strange, like they didn't really like the children, and they wouldn't let the kids touch them or go near the kids at all, which is a big sign of something being wrong. I feel like when pets don't like people, when they usually do, like when a really friendly dog doesn't like somebody, that is a huge red flag that person you should just probably keep your distance from. So that to me would scream like something was wrong. But anyways, the woman went into the kitchen to make hot chocolate, and her husband stayed in the living room with the 2 kids. And when she returned back from the kitchen, she noticed that her husband was kind of leaning over, holding his head. And at this time, she asked him if he was okay, what was wrong, and he just said that he felt really dizzy, but he was all right. So at this point is when I believe the couple noticed that both of these children had completely black eyes. And that is when the couple started to act really nervous and uneasy and just weird around these children. And the woman said that she believed the children knew that they were scared, so both of the kids got up and walked to the bathroom. Now, while they were in the bathroom, the power went out, the guy's nose started bleeding, then the kids came out of the washroom, they claimed that their parents were there, then they opened the front door and just left, never to be seen again. Now, that story is absolutely horrifying to me, and I was trying to think, like, what could cause all of this, you know? But then I kept reading, and the things that happened after the children left are just as bad as the things that took place while the children were inside the home. After these kids had been invited into this couple's home, the couple just seemed to have very bad luck and very poor health. Everything in their lives that could have gone wrong seemed to have started going wrong. A bunch of their cats went missing, and one day they had come home to find one of their pets in a pool of his own blood in the living room, and they took this pet to the vet, and the vet said that they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. Also, after the encounter with the kids, the husband started to have nosebleeds on a regular basis. His nose just started bleeding all the time, and before this encounter with these kids, it was said that he had never had a nosebleed before, so that was something that was really strange. After the encounter with these children, the wife also claimed that she started to have frequent nosebleeds as well, and she also had dizzy spells, and her health just seemed to really go down the drain. And just a few weeks after these children had showed up at this house, her husband was diagnosed with skin cancer. Now, this man is said to have never spent a significant amount of time outside. He never really hung out in the sun. He never used a tanning bed. All of the things that are normally said to lead to skin cancer, this man just didn't partake in. So for him to have skin cancer was something really out of the ordinary. It was something really unexpected for this couple, and they said that they chalk all of this up to the visit that they had with the black-eyed children, and they think that all of these bad things are happening to them because they let them into their home. Now, those are just 2 of the black-eyed children stories that I came across online that I saw that could have permission to post on YouTube because I really didn't want to get a copyright strike. But there is definitely a lot of interesting stories where people claim to have encounters with these creatures all over the internet. And some of them are just absolutely horrifying. Like, these ones are pretty scary, but they're tamed compared to some of the other ones. And I personally can't imagine waking up in the middle of the night to hearing somebody knock on my door. Even if they didn't have black eyes, that would really freak me out. So I can't imagine opening the door to see two really strange kids standing there with completely black eyes. That would be absolutely horrifying. I don't really know about this one, guys. Let me know what you think about the black-eyed children in the comments down below, because I'm really on the fence. I don't know if I believe in them or if I don't. At first I thought that I did, but after looking into it, I just really don't know. So make sure to let me know what you think down below and why you think it, because I love to hear your guys' opinions on these types of things, especially ones where I really can't form my own opinion or when I'm not really sure what I think. I love to know what you guys think. But guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.